Yeah, that's a wizard. 100%.
Calling the game right now. Dressed like the Michelin Man, ready to get my on.
A really good team that shouldn't have been.
7 different teams won conference championships.
U of A, not one of them. I just wanted to point that out.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris. This is Dom. We're just a couple of comics out here talking sports. We're talking about one of the greatest soccer coaches ever. Who are we talking today?
We're getting Fergie-Licious with Sir Alex Ferguson.
Getting Fergie-Licious. I knew the jokes were going to come. I just didn't know they were going to come that early and that hard.
Hey, all I'm saying is when I was researching this, little THC, when I saw it, they called it Fergie time, I immediately went to the Black Eyed Peas and not the soccer pitch.
You were confused because you were like, all right, tactically he's going for this lady lumps. And I don't understand how that's going to benefit this team, but it did.
It did, because, what you going to do with all that junk?
What you going to do with all that junk?
Alrighty, Alex Ferguson, Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yes.
Born New Year's Eve, 1941.
Glasgow, Scotland. He's a Scottish manager, which is kind of interesting, and we'll see. Maybe he comes up against some stuff being Scottish, and it's pretty ridiculous with his playing career. So.
But he grew up in Glasgow. His father was in the shipbuilding industry, which is pretty cool. And he lived with his parents and younger brother Martin, who was also a soccer player. Yeah.
And he started as an amateur soccer player, and then he got an apprenticeship as a Toolmaker, that's right. And then this was very common.
Improvement.
This is very common back then. Was they would have like part-time amateur soccer player, and then they would be a full-time toolmaker, and he ended up actually joining the union out there and all of that. So they pretty much had these futures set out for him, even though he was like a top prospect. There really wasn't this professional football.
No, there really wasn't.
Path.
It was more or less like, do this first. It's almost like stand-up.
Yeah.
Some of us have full-time jobs, and, it's not our main squeeze.
Exactly. So he ends up joining his first real season. He signs for, and I really am going to mess this one up, Dunfermline.
I love British names. It's just there's too many letters, or they put just mash two words together.
And this is in 1964, and this is following St. Johnstone's. They refused to sign him as a professional player, and then Dunfermline came in and said, we'll sign you as a professional player. And then he proceeds to score 45 goals in 51 games, which you see him like really is a great striker for this time. He shares top goal scoring in one of the seasons that he's in for them. So
65-66 with one of Celtic's players. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we see him joining Rangers, which a lot of people felt like he really should have joined Celtic, but they had this top striker already. Yeah. So he ends up joining Rangers, and he felt right away that they were discriminating against him because his wife was Catholic.
Oh, no.
So the manager of operations asked him if he got married in a church, and he said, no, we went to the registry or whatever. And he was just like, all of these like backhanded comments kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then he ended up letting a goal, he ended up being the reason why a goal got conceded against Celtic, who's Rangers' biggest rivals.
69 Scottish Cup final.
In the Scottish Cup final, and he ends up getting blamed for that and demoted to the juniors, which he felt like was unjust, which he was right.
Your wife believes in that guy in the pointy hat in the Vatican. No playing time for you.
Well, Celtic's Catholic and Rangers are Protestant. So that's why people were saying, like, especially in this era, they were like, wow, I can't believe Ferguson's going to join the Rangers. The Rangers are being so like woke right now. You know what I'm saying? And then they were just like, nah, we're just going to punish them.
Oh, you mean to tell me, Chris, the Catholics and Protestants don't like each other? Come on.
So he gets demoted. This was something that I saw. His brother actually came out and said that he actually threw away his second place medal from that year.
Yeah, he did.
Because he was so disillusioned with Rangers and the way they treated him. And this comes later on that he's made this statement that he'll never treat a player for like they're out of their personal life.
Yeah, stuff that they can't control.
Well, like stuff that is different than the normal, or not even the normal, but like where he's coming from, if that makes sense. So, and we see his team really become international sensations later on.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking, like, throwing away your second place medal. That guy went to the school of Ricky Bobby. You ain't first, you're last.
Oh, man. But it was more the hatred of the way he was being treated.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Which I have to agree with him, even though you see this kind of in teams a lot.
Mm-hmm. Men of their time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He almost moved to Nottingham Forest. His wife didn't want to move to England. A lot of people thought him moving to Nottingham, who was a great team, that really would have pushed him to be like a striker that you would remember for being a striker.
Yeah.
He ends up moving to Falkirk.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
he just is kind of like a regular player, but this is where they allow him to be a player manager.
He's Pete Rosing the shit out of this.
And this is, so he's not like the manager, he's like an assistant. And this is where he sees what his future is. They get a new manager because he's doing this for a couple of years, and this new manager comes in and takes away all of his coaching responsibilities, and then he's like, all right, I want to transfer.
Yeah, exactly, because it's like, well, if I can't do this, it's kind of what I want to do when all of this is over.
Yep.
Like, GFY. Go.
So he goes, transfers to another Scottish team, and then retires. That he doesn't really have a great career. He was a good striker for a short amount of time, but the move to Rangers really messed it up, and then not going to England, probably that as well. But for us, this is where the story really begins.
This is where the Fergie-Liciousness starts.
So first manager, his first job as a manager, it's this really rink-a-dink club called Stirlingshire.
Yeah, Stirlingshire.
East Stirlingshire.
Lots of Baggins play on that team.
Exactly. Where this was something I found interesting. He was getting paid €40 a week, and then
just great. I think it was probably pounds, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they converted all the euros now on the what I find.
Oh, were you okay? Yeah. Sweet. Thank God for the internet.
And then they didn't have a first team goalkeeper. That was something else. When he got there, they were just like, yeah, we don't have a goalie, so you got to find that. And then
goalies, what are those?
Well, that's the thing. And then in like 6 months, this other team came in, St. Mirren's, who was like a real team that had aspirations. They had like a real stadium, and so it was really two different types of clubs. And
is Helen Mirren their mascot?
I hope so.
God.
So he moves to St. Mirren's, even though he felt like he felt like some sort of like obligation to stay, which was not right.
Yeah,
because I mean, they just weren't a team that ever could do anything.
Exactly.
But then this is the thing that everyone says is once he goes to St. Mirren's, the culture that he brings is what he does to every single other club.
Yeah, and he was like a hard ass. I remember one of the guys had said, I had never feared anything in my life, but I was straight scared of him.
Yeah, which that's the way he was out on the field. And this is something that you kind of get away from now, especially in college basketball, but he would just be like, what are you doing? And then he would just like curse players out and like that kind of stuff. So he goes to St. Mirren's, and this is something I found so interesting in 77.
Yep.
They're in the Division 2, which is the third division. We've had this discussion.
Yes.
It's all confusion over there. So they're in Division 2, and they end up in a 4-year period so they get promoted to Division 1.
Yeah.
And then winning that and get promoted to the top division, which is quite a ridiculous run. And that's
totally
what everybody says is he was destined to join a bigger team. Because St. Mirren was great to start off, but
there's more opportunity for him because he's such a good coach to shine for a known team, a sexy team.
Exactly. Well, like a top division team.
Exactly.
So St. Mirren, even though they made it to the top division, they weren't necessarily a top division team.
No.
And they have the unbelievably distinction of being the only club to ever fire Sir Alex Ferguson, which there are many reports that came out.
Oh, yeah.
Some of which said that he was trying to pay players under the table, some of which said that he got really mad at like the traveling secretary because she wouldn't give them gifts.
Poor lady
untaxed.
George Costanza.
Oh my God. Because he got, that was the other thing.
Speak to her.
No, yeah. He went like pretty wild. And that was what St. Mirren's said was he was too immature that he shouldn't be a manager, which was kind of like the thing. And then the report that came out years later was that he had signed an agreement with Aberdeen.
Yep.
And that he had approached players at St. Mirren to join him in Aberdeen, which is unbelievable.
You can't do that. That's so unprofessional.
This was the thing was somebody said like, all right, so if that was true, they would have took his coaching badges away.
Yeah.
So that's why when all this stuff has come out, people are like, okay, so we have no idea what happened. That's one thing that's for sure. They're just like, we just have no idea because
it's like a history's mysteries.
Well, he literally doesn't even join Aberdeen that season.
No, he doesn't.
He takes a season off and then joins Aberdeen.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting, that whole thing in which social media didn't exist. So we'll just never
could you
know.
Imagine that? It would have probably broken the British internet.
I don't think he would have survived social media. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah.
He would have Bob Knighted himself out of somewhere.
So he joins Aberdeen. And this is when especially with St. Mirren's, he's trying to instill this culture of more of like an athletic.
Yeah.
Because it is really a drinking culture. It is really a boy club kind of thing.
Yeah, the country club mentality.
Where it was almost like there were 9 professionals and 3 guys that were just like buddies. That's kind of like the feeling of it. And he really brought in this
Furious Fergie.
Yes, this Furious Fergie where it was like everybody's responsible. This is your time to be a professional and this is what I expect of you.
He seems like the Gordon Ramsay of coaches.
Oh yeah, definitely. So this is one of my favorite things at Aberdeen. He fined a player for passing him on the road. That's how much fear he wanted to put in these players' hearts.
That is amazing.
It was. And people were saying it was just like, yeah, you didn't want to disappoint him. Like it went throughout, even further than football. You just like literally were just like, no, I didn't want to do anything for him to be like, what are you doing? Because
they made men differently back in those days.
Yeah.
God.
Seriously, though.
Oh, my gosh.
So right away, about 2 years in, they start winning.
Yeah, which is, good.
Which is pretty ridiculous. So 82, they win the Scottish Cup. And as a result of this 82 victory, they get into Europe in 83.
They do.
And they proceed to be one of the greatest underdog stories.
Yeah, they're
in
like
the European
Cinderella.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
beat FC Bayern. Yep.
And Bayern was tipped. So this was the big thing: was Bayern was tipped to win that year, and they were talking about this being another Bayern Real Madrid final, and then Aberdeen, a team from Scotland that nobody was saying,
right.
You know what I mean, came in and ended up beating them.
Why do all these guys look like groundskeeper Willie from The Simpsons?
Oh my God, that's literally the era of the mustache.
Oh yeah.
And then this is the thing that was great. They go on and play Real Madrid in the final. It's 1-1, and they end up beating them 2-1 in overtime for the most improbable European victory
May
ever.
11th, 1983,
Yep.
and they're only the 3rd Scottish team to do that, to accomplish that feat, which is pretty cool to read about.
Yeah, only the 3rd Scottish team. You probably won't see another Scottish team to do it, just to be honest. I mean, that's just the way their leagues are set up now.
Yeah.
83-84, they really had a bad start following this victory. I feel like there was a lot of hangover. They end up winning. They end up doing the double that year.
Yep.
So, but they still had just this unbelievably great team.
Yeah.
86. So this is what's interesting was I believe they won cups in here. I'm just gonna
83-84, the Scottish Cup, and then won the league title again in 84-85.
Yeah, so they were the first team in 15 years to win a Scottish league title that wasn't Rangers or Celtic.
That's amazing.
And they did that, and they ended up winning 82, 83, 84, and 86, and the Euro Cup in 83. That's what I'm talking about with this was he took this team over, made this culture, and then won a triple.
Yeah,
that's what's so ridiculous.
This is like the Bill Belichick of soccer coaches.
Yes, 100%. And then in '86, the Scottish manager of the national team dies.
Yeah, World Cup.
Yeah. Died of a heart attack. And I thought it was interesting because I think his name was Jack Strepp or something. But when he was thinking about going to St. Mirren's, he asked him about, should I be loyal to the smaller club? And he goes, God, no. You should never be loyal and not take that jump to a bigger club, because he was like, dude, you should be coaching like top teams right now.
This is your career, man.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to like pass up an opportunity if it comes along that you really like.
So he dies. And everyone felt like, because Sir Alex was so close to him, Sir Alex ends up taking over the Scottish national team and kind of leaving his duties at Aberdeen to somebody else, which everybody saw as like, okay, he's ready to leave Aberdeen and go to a different club. During this whole time, pretty much every English club has come in and tried to get him to coach.
They all want him. He's the hottest commodity there is right there.
So like Wolverhampton Wanderers, Tottenham, Arsenal. So he's denied all of them, and people said that he was kind of waiting for Manchester United, but Manchester United that summer signed a coach.
Yeah.
And then that coach had one of the worst starts ever to a season for them, so they fired him.
November '86.
And then that's when they brought him in. So it wasn't at the beginning of the season, but they definitely brought him in. Yeah.
No, they brought him in to save the franchise or the club or whatever they call them over there. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I find that to be interesting, where they kind of like, he went from Aberdeen to international coach to the taking over Manchester United, because they weren't like a great team.
No.
And he said when he showed up, it was the culture that it was at Aberdeen, where it was still like a drinking culture.
They were high on the hog and lazy, man. That's what they were.
And he was still a young coach. This is what he faced at Aberdeen. He was still 36, 37 when he went there. And like, there were guys that were literally his age or a couple years younger.
Yeah.
And it was hard for him to instill this authority, which is why he was so into youth players, because they looked and had respect for him.
Yeah, they weren't like grizzled veterans who were just out there to earn a paycheck for the most part. Who dudes who are at the end of their career. But if you get these younger kids, and as we'll see, he gets a lot of them for the Manchester United.
Well, this is what I feel like his legacy for Manchester United is winning titles, but the rebuild in such a short time, and then the constant winning.
Oh my God, right?
It's crazy. We see 86, he gets a lot of veterans riled up. 87, 88, he brings in Steve Bruce. He brings in a couple of other players that are like the system that he wants to play, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But they're not good.
No.
This is the thing. When he first starts, for 3 years, they're a mid-table team.
Yeah.
They're not good whatsoever. And in 89, he has a 7-game.
They finished in 11th place.
And they have a 7-game streak without a win. Ooh. They go to Nottingham Forest for a third-round FA Cup, and there were talks that he was going to get fired.
Yeah, he was like on a hot seat.
He was literally like ready to get fired from this job. They ended up winning 2-1 in an amazing game, and somebody said that he never looked back from that.
No,
it's kind of ridiculous to be on the verge like that.
It's like when the Browns fired Belichick.
Yeah, seriously though.
There was a banner hanging in one of the stadiums that said, 3 years of excuses and it's still crap. Ta-ta, Fergie.
Yeah.
Like the fans they were ready on him. Yeah.
And then he proceeds to win the FA Cup that year. They end up beating Crystal Palace.
That just sounds like a strip club soccer team.
I think I brought this up before, but majority owner of Crystal Palace?
Who?
Elton John.
Oh, that makes so much sense in the best way.
It's my favorite thing.
Can you feel that soccer tonight?
Yes. Can you?
Can you?
I'll tell you what Saturday nights are for.
They're for soccer.
So even after he wins the FA Cup, there's still doubts because they're not great in the season. 91, 92, they're not doing that great.
No.
They lose to Leeds, but this is the
Leeds' last title, remember? Yeah.
This is when, and go check out our Leeds episode, but this is like I was saying, where this small, not even small, but this thing happens where these two clubs just go in different. They flip flop,
and one dude's the cause of it.
Leeds wins the last English First Division as the top division,
and they're Man U's biggest rival.
Liverpool and Leeds.
Yeah,
but yes, at that point it was definitely because Liverpool wasn't challenging. So
yeah,
so they create this thing called the Premier League. And then Leeds proceeds to sell Eric Cantona to Manchester United. And here's something else
that's horrible.
Well, this is what people were saying was like, this is what, if you didn't live in it, you don't remember. And I didn't live in it, but I researched it, was people torched Sir Alex Ferguson for buying Cantona because they felt like he was a disease in the locker room. They felt like he wasn't good enough on the field. There was all this stuff that were just like, this is a horrible, horrible trade. And this is why
it's almost like Curse of the Bambino.
Oh yeah, seriously though, for Leeds.
Yeah, Curse of Cantona.
He comes in, and this is why Sir Alex Ferguson is one of the greatest coaches ever. Is tactically he sees there's a space in between the midfield and the defense, and he brings Cantona back because he was a striker his whole life, and he brings him back to be this withdrawn kind of messy striker.
Yeah,
and people don't really know what to do with him because he's so big and he can head it and he proceeds to be their, like, the missing piece because we see them win
92, 93. They went on that run because they were in 10th place in November of that year, in 92. But with Cantona, by April 10th of 93, they were in second, which is amazing.
And then we see him do back-to-back doubles.
Yep, back-to-back doubles.
And this is something that is so interesting because the 92 season is so important because of what happened on the field.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, because of their youth group.
Yeah, Ryan Giggs, we did an episode on him. He's in kind of the mix right there.
So Ryan Giggs is the first guy to come through. Mm-hmm. Check out that Giggsy episode. He's quite a wild stallion out there.
With a Y. Like in Bill, God dang it.
One of the best left wingers of this era. Mm-hmm. But Giggs comes through, and then this is his reliance on youth. There's this pack of guys from this 92 youth team, and it's Nicky Butt, Phil and Gary Neville, David Beckham, Paul Scholes. It's this group of guys who comes through, and they are literally the core of this Manchester United team for like the next decade.
It wasn't, David Beckham. Isn't he married to Posh Spice?
Mr. Posh Spice.
Yeah, Mr. Posh Spice. That's a good one. I like that.
It's actually interesting because, so this is in 95. He sells Paul Ince to Inter Milan, which everybody thought he was crazy. Mark Hughes goes to Chelsea, which everyone thought was crazy.
They kind of like, slashed the roster and tried to rebuild it.
Well, they slashed it, and then he didn't bring a single transfer in.
Yeah.
So people were like, okay, he's crazy. But what people didn't know was he had this unbelievable youth cast that was going to come in and fill all of these roles, and this is what people were talking about, where they almost didn't miss a step with this, and why it was so ridiculous, because they proceed to just like dominate the 90s and the Premier League. So this is what made the Premier League so great, was like his domination.
Oh my God. Could you just imagine though being a Leeds fan then and just watching it?
It
was like watching the Yankees post Babe Ruth.
Yeah, no, it would be the worst, because you were like, man, we are so dominant. And they weren't like super, but they were great.
Yeah.
And then Manchester United becomes dominant. Like not even
destroying people essentially. Yep. Yeah.
All right. So now we get into the 99 to 2000.
Yeah.
2002. So in this 3-year span, they win the league 98, 99, 2000.
Jeez.
And then they win the European Cup.
Yes, they do. Mm-hmm.
They end up beating Bayern Munich on 2 corner kicks, which is pretty ridiculous.
That's like the hardest thing to do.
Well, they were really on set pieces then, and it's quite a ridiculous Championship League final, beating them 2-1. Mm-hmm. And then this stuff comes out in 2002 where Sir Alex says he's going to retire. Yeah. The team goes into a huge slump.
Yeah.
And he got talking with his wife, and his wife said, "You really shouldn't retire. You still have time to do this. He said he hit 60 and felt like he didn't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and do 16-hour days. And I was like, yeah, I imagine
get that.
And there was a rebuild at this point on 2002. So like this is when you see David Beckham leave to Real Madrid, and all these other players kind of start to go down. So there was question whether or not he wanted to be there for that second rebuild.
Yeah, but he did. He stayed.
And this is where you see from 2003 to like 2005-ish, it's just him bringing in players. So he brings in Ronaldo, who was not tipped as like a great player. He was tipped as somebody that was like too much time on the ball and wouldn't pass it and all of this stuff. And they're saying in practice Sir Alex would tell defenders like, no, you need to go clear him out if he's spending too much time on the ball. And this is what Darren Fletcher said. He was just like, yeah, he was not nice to Ronaldo in the first year. Like it was like trial by fire. Like, are you going to make it to be this unbelievable player?
Yeah.
He picks Rooney up as a kid from Everton.
Yeah, Wayne Rooney.
Picks up Park Ji-sung. Like these are the players that come together to rebuild. But I'm going to get into one of the weirder stories.
Let's go.
So in this late 90s, 2000, he buys a horse with this guy named John Magniar. Magniar.
I don't know. I was going to say Leguizamo, but.
Yeah, John Magniar. And they buy this horse called Rock of Gibraltar. And
they should have named it Cock of Gibraltar.
Yeah. Sir Alex thinks it's a 50-50 deal. The paperwork actually states that it's a 50-50 deal for the prize money, not what would be the stud fee.
Yeah.
And so this horse ends up becoming one of the best horses to run in Europe. It breaks like a 30-year drought of like all these victories kind of thing. So its stud fee, it becomes insane.
Yeah.
And
people
this
want
guy,
that semen.
Well, this guy John Magniar actually makes, and this isn't an exaggeration, over $100 million from this stud fee.
That's amazing.
Okay, and Sir Alex sues him for 50% of it.
Yeah.
He has the paperwork that says, well, technically my wife gets 50% of that stud fee. Hi-yo, come on now. And what he did with this $100 million, $150 million was because they were friends. He was a minority owner of Manchester United. He owned like 6%. With this newfound money, he ends up buying another like 22% and becomes majority owner of Manchester United. And then says to Sir Alex Ferguson, hey, I want to review every single transfer that you've ever done. Turns out Sir Alex did some shady work because his son was an agent.
Yeah, his son, and he was steering players either towards them or against them.
And taking bigger fees than he shouldn't have. So like taking players from agents and like using his leverage that, hey, my dad's Sir Alex Ferguson, this, you know what I mean? So like they said they opened that. They were like, well, we want to look into all your transfers. And then Sir Alex was like, all right, I'm going to settle for $2.5 million. And this is where, unfortunately, it goes downhill for Manchester United. Is this guy, John Magniar, didn't buy this to really like own Manchester United.
No, he just wanted to be a spiteful dick.
No, it was just like an investment.
Oh, yeah. No, it's like he's just focused on making money.
Yes, exactly. So he then resells it to the highest bidder, which is the Glazers family.
Who own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Who are the worst owners, and Manchester United fans hate them. I mean, they've pretty much turned a profitable club into just a mountain of debt. And they run it like an American club.
Oh,
so they literally are just running up the debt, and then they're probably going to sell it. It's pretty ridiculous. And their purchases over the years have been horrible. And this is where people are saying why Sir Alex is the best coach ever, that he goes from having great owners to goes from having some of the worst owners and still produces championships.
It's like winning with the Lions almost.
Yes. No, seriously. So one of the last probably best transfers that he brings in is Michael Carrick. And I remember this happening was Michael Carrick gets signed for $18 million. And people were like, I wouldn't sign him for 4. And then the next year, people were like, oh, yeah, I would sign him for 50. And that was like, people were like talking. And this is what Sir Alex Ferguson did all the time, was he would sign people and they'd be like, why would you sign this player? And he'd just be like, this is my favorite, because he would curse at journalists more than anybody. He'd be like, you guys are fucking idiots. In a interview, he would say that. This is one of my favorite stories. This was a little bit earlier. Sorry, I got to bring this up.
All right.
They signed Varane from, I believe, from Inter Milan. Mm-hmm. A lot of the journalists are like, why did you sign this guy? He's not a good, signing. Sir Alex Ferguson sets a press conference at 8:00 in the morning. When that happens, that means that people have to drive from all over the country to be there. So like they have to like leave at like 6 in the morning, and they never schedule them at 8:00 in the morning unless they're trying to get in front of something.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, this is important.
Yeah.
He gets there and he just goes, you little shits don't know anything about football. Stop questioning and talking shit on my players, and then leaves. And so,
how could you not want to play for a guy like that?
It was so good. Well, that's what people were saying, was just like, if you attacked his players, he would come at you full force.
That's amazing.
And if you did something that he didn't like, he would come at you twice as much.
That's so good. So good.
2008, 10th title and European victory over my Chelsea. This was another one that Sir Alex, with the little things, he had all of his players wear extra long cleats.
Oh, yeah.
In this, and John Terry slips taking his penalty. None of the Manchester United players slipped. It was one of those things where it was just like that little bit extra
attention to detail.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just the formations over the years. I wanted to bring this up where with Cantona, he dropped him back and he was almost running a 4-4-1-1, and then he moved into this new era with David Beckham and Dwight York and all these players, and it was almost like a 4-4-2-2. And then with Wayne Rooney and Tevez and Ronaldo, it was almost like a 4-3-3. So people were saying like, he didn't care about the formation. He just played with the players.
Yeah.
And that's why he was so good.
Smart enough.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I always keep bringing up Belichick.
It's that's like, literally, yes.
I mean, it's just like, it doesn't matter who I have. It's how do I get the best out of all of these guys so the team plays well. And
that's the problem with a lot of coaches, is they try and fit them in their formation. And that's why he was so great and this is what I love. He was dominant over 3 decades.
That's what I mean. That's amazing.
Because he was ever changing.
Yeah, ever changing.
08-09, third consecutive title. He's the first person to ever do it twice, and this was the third time he did it with a team.
God.
It's insane. The 09-010 was the first time they did back-to-back League Cups. It was the first time they defended a League Cup. And then 10-11, he won his 12th, and Manchester United's 19th, which overtook Liverpool at the time, but they've come back. This was the big thing, was everybody saw him about to retire, and Manchester City emerges as the superpower. They ended up beating them in 2011, 2012. And he said, a lot of people said that he was planning on retiring, but wanted one more year to beat Manchester City.
Yeah.
This is his last, and probably one of his best signings was he went and signed Robin van Persie from Arsenal, which everybody was like, Arsenal, you're the worst. Why are you signing it to your biggest rival? And then they go on to win, and it would be his 13th title. Manchester United's 20th. And just to seal that victory over Manchester City on his last season,
I know, right?
It was just
going
like
out
the
a
perfect
champion. Yeah,
it makes sense that Old Trafford is called the Theater of Dreams, because it was just like absolute theater.
Yeah.
I just want to list his managerial.
Oh, please.
Scottish League in 82. Scottish League victories in 82, 83, 84, 86, Euro Cup in 83. That's all Aberdeen. And then Premier League titles in 93, 94, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2003, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2011, 2013, FA Cups in 90, 94, 96, 99, 2004, League Cups in 92, 06, 09, 10, and then Champions League in 99 and 08. And this was the only thing, was in that 08 stretch, They made the finals 3 out of 4 years, and this is one of the only things that he said was, we should have won another Champions League, and that was completely on me. And that's why I loved him as a manager, was he would always take responsibility and get the best out of his players.
Oh, yeah, totally. No, he was fascinating to research.
Yeah.
Like, just crazy.
I'm a Chelsea fan, and I have all respect for Sir Alex Ferguson. Thank you all very much.
All right.